emergency for the first time in about
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 836.MT0208, certificate number 32762, the next Dalai Lama.
Of course, I accept it on behalf of the 6 million Tibetan people, my brave countrymen and women inside Tibet, who have suffered and continue to suffer so much.
I have a friend who's on the board of some local do-gooder nonprofits.
I really thought you were going to say, I have a friend that's potentially the next Dalai Lama.
I have a friend
And I
that
was
goes
gonna
to
say,
shows.
Is it me?
And when she gets home and she blows her nose. Yeah. I mean, who do you think the next Dalai Lama is going to be?
It's got to be a kid, right?
It could be one. You don't think it's one of us?
Personally, I feel like...
What do you think your odds are?
I think my odds are greater that I will be tapped by the UFOs to speak on their behalf they will mentally telepathy their thoughts to me, and then I will sit behind a sort of a talk show host desk on, international television.
Do you believe that the Dalai Lama has a talk show? Up until this point in your life, have you believed that? Do you think he's in the audience like Phil Donahue?
Does the Dalai Lama? Why doesn't the Dalai Lama have a talk show?
Everybody else does.
Well, that's the
All
thing.
the Huxtable kids have had a talk show at one point.
Right now, if you want the Dalai Lama's wisdom, you have to follow him around or read his op-eds in the Washington Post.
Pay $10,000 a plate for a fundraiser dinner.
Yeah, but why wouldn't he just sit on a closed circuit TV and
Why do we have so much of Seth Meyers' wisdom? Just ours. The future's going to think Seth Meyers was our spiritual leader. And the Dalai Lama, you occasionally get a quote.
I feel like we've gotten to the bottom of this very fast. I don't know if this is where your show was headed, but why are our spiritual leaders not on nightly television talking to people?
I guess they are, if you've ever gone by the weird satellite dish channels.
Oh, yeah?
You don't think those are our spiritual leaders?
Personally, I don't.
Not to me either, but by the numbers... those guys are probably doing as well as the Dalai Lama.
There's one of those new rock and roll churches up here at the corner.
Oh yeah,
where the ministers all have tattoos and they say, and
Jesus is lit.
Jesus is lit, and it ends up that they're 10 times more misogynist than even the worst,
than just the ordinary. Yeah,
and but they've started putting up sandwich boards on the street corners in this neighborhood, "Hey, come to church, man! It's the coolest." Habity babbity boo.
You're doing finger guns. Let the record show.
Finger
I'm
guns.
not sure how a sandwich board would do that.
Well, it's just it's we believe in attraction rather than promotion.
Salvation, bang, bang.
And so, but the church is right over here, and I can kind of see, I can see it from the balcony, and I'm kind of excited to see how many hot rods pull up, what kind of groovy scene it is. And they definitely probably have a television station.
You think?
Internet.
You think every toxic masculine megachurch in your neighborhood has a...
Do you not
has a TBS kind of superstation?
There used to be a band in Seattle called Man Ray. Do you remember Man Ray? Oh, you were probably in.
I don't,
you
actually.
No, they were sort of glam, loud glam. And the lead singer, very charismatic guy, beautiful guy. But it was one of those scenes where they were like a hip band, no tattoos. They were coming from a different location culturally. And then one day they all showed up and had giant tattoos, sleeves, which was weird. But then when the band broke up, I ran into the lead singer later, and he said, I moved to Spokane and became a minister. And it was really like, Mesa Boogie minister over in Spokane, running some mega church. And I realized, it's the same gig. Like being the front person of a glam band or running a megachurch, same exact.
Well, then I've
gig.
got good news for you, my friend.
No. I'm working for the UFOs. I really feel I'm holding out.
You've already sold your soul to the UFOs. You will not take a higher offer from evangelical Christianity.
The thing is, it can't be my soul, because for me to have global credibility, speaking on behalf of the UFOs, they have to leave me to have my own integrity.
At some point, there's going to be a battle between the Judeo-Christian God and the Interstellar Federation. It sounds like you are backing the Greys.
No.
You think they can win. You think they can storm the gates of heaven.
I feel like I'm a good interpreter, right? An interpreter of UFO cultural dynamics.
But your talents would be wasted as a messiah.
Yeah, no, I'm more of a mediator.
So you are taking your name out of contention for the next Dalai Lama on this as of this moment?
I feel like if you consulted the oracle, right? If you threw the knuckle bones in a bag and shook them up and threw them out on the tee.
Not how they do it, but we'll get to that.
I would have already failed a few of the requirements. And it's like predestination.
I think it was when you learned to ski. The Dalai Lama can't ski.
See? Can the Dalai Lama not ski?
I guess I don't want to limit my idea of what a bodhisattva can accomplish.
But right, aren't there some things where they go and they look at the kid, and if the kid has he's double jointed or whatever, they're like, aha.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
That's the process that was followed when the current Dalai Lama took office, but it may not be what happens when he passes.
Oh,
we're at a rough time in it's a fraught moment for Dalai Lama succession. I'm doing the turns out at the beginning now.
Right.
I've never listened to a full what's the Ira Glass show? Yeah, I've never listened to a full This American Life.
You just fast forward to the end?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm like, to me that show is called Turns Out.
But is this one of those things where all the young people are leaving the state of Nebraska because they're all going to the bright lights of the big city, and then nobody's farming the soybeans?
And so they can't be Wait.
Well, no,
so they can't be Dalai Lama.
I'm saying that the young Dalai Lamas are like, yeah, Dalai Lama or whatever, but I'm a pro skateboarder now.
Yeah, they're all on their cell phones.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure, all you need is one.
Oh.
So the demographic problem is easy to solve.
But there are a lot of Lama, right? Well, now let's get to the singular plural. Lama is also the plural, right?
I don't think that's
or is it
necessarily
lamas?
True. I think they can be lamas.
But there are multiple lamas.
Merriam-Webster says the plural is, well, they don't say, so that means it's lamas. Yes. The 1L Lama as, what is that? Ogden Nash? Do you know the poem?
No, but
the 1L Lama, he's a priest. The 2L Lama, he's a beast. And I will bet a silk pajama there isn't any 3L Lama.
In Castilian, they would pronounce it Yama.
Yes. I don't know how you would pronounce the 3L one. It's an interesting argument for the non-existence of it's an interesting kind of theological argument for the non-existence of the 3L Lama.
What if the L was at the end? Lamal.
It would just be, I'm just going to play New York Times Spelling Bee right now. You can get mammal, you can get mall. So, there's no betting line for the next Dalai Lama, which is odd. There's probably one for next Jeopardy host, but
almost certainly I've got $600.
Here's what's wrong with our society. And I know you went with Blossom, and that's okay. It's very unclear what's going to happen. But the story I was going to tell about my friend is because he's on the board of these international nonprofits. He's
is he a hippie or a do-gooder? Is he a religious do-gooder or a hippie do-gooder?
I would say religious. And maybe a religious now. But he's a guy with family, money, and time to spare. So he's on Seattle boards.
Oh God, I wish that was me.
And it seems like he maybe just wants the flights to wherever they fly to.
That's all I want.
More than he cares about measles or whatever.
Put me in first class and send me to a board meeting. That's all I really want out of life.
Send me to Davos. But as a result, he's heard the Dalai Lama speak, the last couple times he was in town, whenever that was. He's heard the Dalai Lama speak a couple times and maybe chatted with him after.
Come on.
And his take is that the Dalai Lama is quite dim. That everyone just assumes, because he's a cherubic old Tibetan man in an orange robe, that he's going to be, full of not just a puckish personality, but also deep enlightenment and wisdom. And in fact, that it's just hearing him, you get the sense that he's just a vapid, he's just somebody who's been the Dalai Lama since he was 2.
Wow. You know that thing where you look at old pictures of Robin Williams and you're like, oh, he was catastrophically depressed for decades and we never knew it because we thought, oh, Robin Williams, like lol.
He's having a good time up there.
But if you look at pictures of him for 20 years, he has the face of he has the shark eyes of someone who cannot, who's looking into the abyss. When I think of the Dalai Lama's cherubic face, I always thought that it meant he was in contact with the bliss. But you're saying he's just dumb.
that was this guy's opinion. I want to hasten to say that I don't necessarily share that. When he told me that, I was like, yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, he won a Nobel Peace Prize, but it was 1989, and they just gave it to him for
being persecuted,
for not being the Tiananmen Square massacre, basically. Like, let's give the Nobel Peace Prize to somebody anti-Chinese Communist Party.
I know that you are, as a man of faith, do you recognize that as someone gets closer and closer to God, they appear stupider and stupider? Is that like a thing? Like, isn't wisdom
that's in medieval Christianity, right? Holy fools,
yeah.
But he hasn't suffered. I mean, he did have to flee his homeland. He had a rough time in the 50s, but I assume it's been pretty great for him for 60 years or so.
I had to flee my homeland, but it's only because the music of Alaska
it's all the parking tickets.
Well, that, and because, music in Alaska is like, well, Soapy Smith went down to the mine and, there's no like rock and roll.
I'm sure they have bad metal bands.
Oh, so many.
Like
there's one called, what was it? Like Three Fist Punch or something that became quite popular.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Big Fisty Punch or something.
I think they should all have Alaskan themed names. Like they should all be called Black Glacier or something. No?
Black Glacier. Let me write that down.
My Alaska metal band is Walrus with an umlaut over the...
Walrus.
I guess. But I read the Dalai Lama's Nobel Prize. I read His Holiness's Nobel Prize speech. And
on your own?
Yeah, just yesterday. I see.
I
was like, you know what? My buddy's always saying, the Dalai Lama's probably a huge dummy. And I don't want to believe the worst about someone. So I read some interviews, and I've seen him on TV kind of just smiling and looking wise, and I'm like, that's what I would do if I didn't know what was going on. I would just kind of smile and look wise. This guy's got 50 years of practice.
That would make a terrible podcast.
But smiling and looking wise with Ken and John. But he does, the Nobel Prize speech is good. I mean, obviously that could be written, but in interviews he seems insightful. I don't buy it, actually.
That he's not smart.
Yeah, I feel like he's probably the best Dalai Lama in my lifetime.
Yeah, right.
He's easily top 5.
Top 5 Dalai Lama.
He's been the Dalai Lama since 1935, of course.
How old was he when he became the Dalai Lama?
I think he was 2 when he was. So, he's talk about just having one employer your whole life.
Why do you think that this is so fascinating to the West and to Steven Seagal? Like, what is Steven Seagal being separate from the West?
He's your main idea of a Buddhist. They're all more or less like Steven Seagal.
They have dyed black hair and are dubious martial artists. But I mean, there are religious patriarchs around the world.
Yeah, we don't care about the Patriarch of Constantinople.
No, there are probably 70 denominations that have more people than Tibetan Buddhism, more adherents than Tibetan Buddhism. But the Dalai Lama just resonates with us.
I mean, let's be honest. A lot of it is politics. He's been a political symbol since, 1950, whatever date, 1959.
When the Chinese invaded Tibet.
Yeah, when Tibet got annexed. And as a result, like a Hollywood cost celeb in your lifetime and mine, not just Steven Seagal, but Richard Gere and all the rest.
Brad Pitt, right?
Deeply concerned Brad Pitt, yeah. And Scorsese made a Dalai Lama biopic.
After he got done making The Last Waltz, he went right over and...
it's in his biopic canon with Jake LaMotta and Howard Hughes, I guess.
Huh.
So yeah, we're fascinated by him. And really, beyond the politics, I would say the secret sauce is the reincarnation.
Oh, sure.
He's
Right.
the 14th Dalai Lama.
So this says here that there are 6.5 million Tibetans. And that appears to be global, which is roughly...
Most of them are probably in Tibet, just by the numbers.
Yeah. Well, no, there are a bunch in China.
And India.
Oh, right, because it's all in China. Durr.
Yeah.
I was like, there are 6.3 million of them in China.
I'm not going to take a position on that.
But that is the number of people in Israel, right? That's the same number of people in Israel as are in... Oh, wait, no, not the people in Israel. I'm sorry. The Jews in Israel. Right? There are 9 million people in Israel, but 6 million of them are Jewish.
And I don't know what borders we're using, and we're not going to talk about that either.
Okay.
So you're making that comparison to show...
just to show, well, I guess that we are just as interested in Jewish or more interested in Israeli politics than we are in Tibetan politics.
And it's for a lot of the same reason. It's a flashpoint with
right.
Not just ethnic, but religious, and in the case of China and Tibet, ideological.
Well, so when are Mormons
struggles.
gonna start some big fight in the mountain states and direct more excited international attention?
We in this analogy, we would be annexed. Utah would be annexed by California or Colorado, Vail.
Yeah, annexed by Vail.
And we fought our wars in the 19th century.
So we're good.
We did get annexed.
Yeah, and you were a flashpoint in the 19th century.
We could have been the free state of... I don't know why I'm saying we.
I don't know
I haven't
why
lived in
I'm saying
I haven't
we
lived in
either.
Utah for 15 years. But it would have been the free and independent state of Deseret,
Right.
stretching all the way from Montana to Mexico.
Right.
But nope, President James K. Polk, let's say, or somebody else.
I'm sure it was Polk.
Sent in the troops and put us down. And there was no... The Dalai Lama in this case did not flee over the border to Reno.
Flee down to Arizona City.
Yeah, exactly. That's what would have happened.
Or no, Colorado
He would have
City.
fled down to Colorado City in northern Arizona. No, the Mormons played nice. They were assimilationist. They decided we're gonna do your boring monogamous marriages if you twist our arm, President possibly Polk. And that's what they called him at the time.
News traveled slow.
Right.
President Polk-ish.
But I think you've really gotten to something. The reincarnation is the main thing. Around the year 1400,
Columbus sailed the ocean blue?
Even before that, an influential Tibetan abbot founded a new school of Buddhism called Gelug, which was kind of a reform movement. It was like Buddhism has lost its way. Things used to be pure. It used to be about the Enlightenment, man.
Yeah.
So he's going to bring it back to his roots, and he brings back yellow hats, which was kind of what the monks wore in the older, purer times that he's hearkening back to. Indian Buddhism, it's more traditional to wear red hats. So to this day, Gelug Buddhism is... that's not the only... I don't want to say that's the theological difference.
Yeah, I wish I could communicate the raised eyebrows that I'm...
The Buddha is displeased when we wear red hats, John.
Is this like in 1968 when people started wearing stripy suits and straw boaters? Like, we're bringing back the style of the 20s.
I think it's more like Mel Gibson's dad trying to put the Mass in Latin.
Oh, got it.
But I'm not saying they're conservative. Like, who cares about the politics of... Here's what I'm going to say. Who cares about the politics of 14th century Tibet? That's the position of this show. Wow. I went there. Like, I don't really know which was the good or bad Buddhism by our modern social standards.
I'm not sure if this is a progressive viewpoint or if this is
I want to be on the right side of Gelug Buddhism. But all we have to know for our purposes, is that they brought back yellow hats.
Okay.
And as a result, to this day, Gelug Buddhism is often called Yellow Hat Buddhism in various languages, including English, because that's how they stand out. I mean, you could do the same thing with other denominations too. I mean, Mormons could just be short sleeve white shirt Christians. Or
let me ask you this, and I don't know if you've put any thought into this, but hats seem to play an oversized role in
hats.
religion.
They do.
And little tiny hats too. Like
well,
everybody's
the Pope's got both. The Pope's got his tall one, and then he's got the smallest hat you can imagine.
So what's the deal? But this is the thing. American evangelicalism appears to be a hatless religion. all the other religions are all full of hats. I mean, maybe
And it's funny when you get even more fundamentalist than them, when you see like, people in the Costco coming straight from the fields, they're all covering their heads.
right, with camouflage mesh back baseball hats.
No, they have simple Mennonite looking hats,
bonnets,
and the
yeah.
women wear bonnets, and
Right.
we're back in Colorado City.
Right.
But then if you get a little more liberal than the evangelicals, they're not wearing hats either,
There's like a divot.
except for Jewish men.
Right. But there's a sort of religious divot where people stop wearing funny hats.
But the people in charge always wear hats, except again for this broad swath of American conservative Christianity.
Although the amount of hairspray in their hair might qualify as a hat.
It's true. That's why they're going for that hat-like look you used to see on Jimmy Swaggart.
Yeah, right. The super pompadour that's just like shellacked.
He wishes he had a papal mitre or a tall yellow monk's hat.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
Oh, wait. So the monks in Tibet, the yellow hat is a tall hat, not a short hat?
Yeah, it's kind of got the spiky spirally top like you're a Dr. Seuss character.
Yes.
I just Googled yellow hat and I got Curious George and then pretty much just Curious George. The hat.
The woman in the yellow suit.
The hat is tall. Have you never seen the Dalai Lama? It's like kind of a shark's fin kind of a thing. Sometimes it's got like feathers or kind of a ruff of something feathery looking at the top, like a faux hawk.
Yeah, it's a cool hat. It's like a banana. It's a banana hat.
The small one, it looks like a banana. Yeah, he's like a guy in a banana suit.
Yeah, like a hook, like a forward hooking banana, like a banana that's coming to get you.
He looks a little bit like a candle from the side.
I hope that people.
Your Tesla would probably think he's a traffic cone if they saw the Dalai Lama crossing a street.
I hope that the Beastie Boys don't think that we are mocking Tibetan Buddhism by describing the Dalai Lama's hat as a banana.
We admire the hat.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful and God and the Bible.
We don't care about 14th century Tibetan Buddhism except for the hats, which are good.
Yeah.
The founder of this new movement had a student, in some accounts his nephew, named Gendun Drupa. And as the story goes, he was at a sacred lake in Tibet when the goddess Palden Lamo, I'm sure I'm saying all these things exactly right.
Yeah.
Palden Lamo emerges from the lake kind of Arthurian style to proclaim that Gendun Drupa, in a shocking twist, is in an important reincarnation lineage.
The reincarnation aspect was not part of Tibetan Buddhism until this point in time?
Buddhists have always believed in reincarnation, but she is saying that he is specifically a reincarnation he's a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, a bodhisattva of compassion.
Oh.
In Buddhism, bodhisattvas are great teachers who have approached Buddhahood with their enlightenment. And, their ideas were so pure, they were so close to the right Dharma that they are approaching enlightenment in that life and in subsequent ones. And in some cases have already received like a promise that they will become a Buddha.
And also, they will take you by the hand.
What?
No, nothing. That was just for the olds.
Wait, what song is that? You're listening to Classic Rock 101.3. Wait, what song is that?
That's Steely Dan.
Oh,
Bodhisattva.
okay.
Yeah.
Bodhisattva, right. And so that's kind of the beginning of the idea of a Dalai Lama. And this is all kind of established retroactively. And by the way, in Tibet, they don't even call him the Dalai Lama.
What?
Tibetans have various names for their spiritual leader. He's often called the wish-fulfilling gem. I'd rather be Dalai Lama's a Western name.
Yeah, but what is wish-fulfilling gem in Tibetan?
In Tibetan, that would be Yeshin Norbu.
Oh, Yeshin Norbu. Sounds like our R. Crumb character.
Yeshin Norbu. More commonly, they just call him Kundun, meaning the presence. So that's where that's the name of the Scorsese biopic.
Right.
Dalai Lama comes to us from the Chinese for reasons that don't begin until the third Dalai Lama. The Western Mongols at that time were ruled by a guy named Altan Khan. Not
Killer name.
Not the guy who recorded Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. This is a different a different guy.
He has a cooking show.
Yeah, I love Alton Khan. He has like an evil cooking show.
Yeah, he's surprisingly conservative.
Where he's like, how do you get the crust of the crust of the chicken just right and crispy? Just like the skin of my enemies. No, Alton Khan has a mean-sounding name, and he was a descendant of Genghis and Kublai Khan, but he embraced Tibetan Buddhism.
Oh.
And Tibetan...
He's like Constantine.
Exactly. He's the Constantine of the Western Mongols. That's what we always called him. And a Tibetan monk named Sonam Gyatso, visiting his realm, took advantage to proselytize Tibetan Buddhism in the region. And Alton Khan gave him a title, and the Chinese title he gave him was Dalai Lama.
Huh.
So you're the high, exalted, important Lama, and that retroactively creates this lineage. This is the third, what we today would call the third, and that retroactively creates an idea that his two predecessors, as leaders of this school of Gelug Buddhism, were also Dalai's Lama.
Uh-huh.
No, that's not right. Dalai Lamas.
Dalai Lamas.
And therefore, again, reincarnated manifestations of this very important Buddha to be, aspiring Buddha.
But it's like the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. It's a thing that got invented and then took on a religious... No.
Yes.
Yeah.
But took on a retroactive
right, like leader of the
lineage.
people. Yeah, I see.
And, the story, we have the story now about the lady in the lake, but, it's probably a later myth to kind of cement the founding of this line of bodhisattvas.
I apologize to the futurelings that are animists or practicing some kind of worship of the sea god, that I keep contextualizing it in medieval Christian contexts. But that's all I know. It's the only way I can see the world.
That's your favorite religion. You're
Yes.
like Spanish Inquisition.
That's the good stuff right in there.
Massacring Huguenots.
Yeah.
I love it all.
Council of Trent.
Big Council of Trent guy right here. And since that time, since Alton Khan made Sonam Gyatso Dalai Lama, every time a leader of this school of Tibetan Buddhism dies, a new one has to be appointed through an interesting process. First of all, a regent is appointed upon the death of the Dalai Lama. One of his monastic disciples, one of his closest advisors, becomes, assistant to the Dalai Lama, basically.
Is it ever a situation where the assistant to the Dalai Lama, in the process of searching for the new Dalai Lama, discovers it's him?
Like Dick Cheney?
Yeah.
Or Mike Richards? No. That is, you're thinking of the papacy, I think. Again, medieval Christianity. And before you ask, there's never been a case where the regent has killed the Dalai Lama to take over his spot. But that's not to say that politics has never been a part of this. For quite a while in the past, at least 3 Dalai Lamas were chosen using the golden urn, which is exactly what it sounds like.
You take the golden urn and you give it to burn.
No, you put names in the golden urn. Have you never seen a Harry Potter movie?
No.
You put a bunch of the leading candidates to be Dalai Lama on strips of metal or ivory. You put them in a golden urn, and then a pretty lady in a swimsuit on TV reaches into the golden urn.
You're kidding.
No. And the process is it was used 3 times to pick a Dalai Lama. And it's kind of widely accepted that the golden urn it sounds cool, but it was super rigged.
Yeah.
Because there is kind of kind of like the Vatican Kremlinology of different factions wanting to put their boy on the throne.
Sure.
That's not totally foreign, I'm sorry to say, in Tibetan Buddhism. Historically, there have been aristocratic Buddhist families or theological factions who wanted to assure that they would be represented. And that's for the reason that since the 5th Dalai Lama, as we'll get to, the Dalai Lama has also been a political leader of Tibet. So there's political power, not just theological power that goes with being the name pulled from the golden urn.
Did I ever tell you about the time I won a side of beef by being chosen as this was in 6th grade.
On this very program, I believe. But
Did I? Have I told you this story before?
yes.
Oh.
But that shouldn't stop you.
No.
What if they haven't heard that entry yet?
It's the equivalent of choosing the Dalai Lama, except in my case, it was the side of beef.
And it was rigged in your case.
Well, it wasn't rigged. It was just, they spun the wheel, and then I looked in and I saw my mom's handwriting on a little slip of paper. You know, it was just like there are 6,000 slips of paper or something. And I just, you know, my mom has very recognizable
That's how all the
handwriting.
self-serving Buddhist monks would have done it. I
I
don't,
was like-
maybe the golden urn has a very narrow lip, so you can't do that. I don't know.
The reason I tell this story over and over is I still feel tremendous guilt about my malfeasance.
And you think confessing it enough times in podcast form will expiate that?
Well, it's not.
That's not what God thinks.
It's just that it's always in the front of my mind, even though it happened 40 years ago.
Do you still have PTSD when you see a side of beef? Like when you watch the Rocky movies?
I got a side of beef a couple of years ago from Kurt Timmermeister,
Oh, yeah.
and it was really nice to have a side of beef.
Isn't he more of a
lying
cheese
around.
guy?
Well, he makes cheese until the cow is no
Oh, I
longer
see.
cheesy,
And then he gives you a side of beef.
yeah. Then it's like, but and the side
It's
of
the
beef
circle of life.
like has her name written on the package.
Oh,
Like,
really?
hamburger
It said
from
like
Daisy.
Rosie or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh. She's marbled. But the golden urn is not used anymore, mostly for political reasons. When the 14th Dalai Lama, now Tenzin Gyatso, although that's not his birth name, when he was chosen, it's a council of the senior monastic advisors of the outgoing Dalai Lama, the one who has passed away. Within the next couple of years, they start searching. And
This is very popey, right? Like the Pope never.
the Pope's not a baby.
Oh, it's a baby, right? Sorry. Go on.
Well, in what way is it like the Pope?
Well, because, you know, the Pope should be touched by God, but in fact, the Pope is touched by 50 bishops or whatever. You know, the bishops are never going to pick like a radical Pope. They're always going to pick a conformist Pope, right?
They picked the current guy who wears Chuck Taylors or something.
Well, I know, but that's just to throw us off the scent.
I see.
I mean, not us. I'm not.
You don't care to throw Mel Gibson's dad off the scent. I mean, the main thing is the monk could be reincarnated anywhere. In the past, they've assumed in Tibet. So the main thing this council is interested in is where to find the kid.
No, it could be anywhere.
You've got to do a search. What do you think? He's just going to be born in the hospital closest to where the guy died? The old guy died?
Well, he was for like 11 centuries.
Well, that's probably a lot simpler then. Tibet was a smaller place.
So you're saying in Malibu, California, there may be a kid with floppy hair whose parents are Hollywood screenwriters, and it's the Dalai Lama.
Isn't that the premise of a Keanu Reeves movie? Yeah, there's a Bertolucci movie where Keanu Reeves has a baby and it's the next Dalai Lama.
There's also the Golden Child starring Eddie Murphy.
Sure, that's what you need. Instead of sending a council of Buddhist monks in shark fin yellow hats, banana hats, you need to send a tough streetwise private detective played by Eddie Murray.
Who's
Murphy?
Eddie Murray.
Eddie Murray of the Baltimore Orioles.
Eddie Murray was the mayor of Seattle. And Eddie Murphy is wearing like a weird leather toque, like a Pan-African toque throughout that movie.
That's how you tell that character apart from Axel Foley. He's not just playing his Beverly Hills Cop character. Again, Johnny's got range.
That's
Now he's wearing a weird hat. I think there was two of these and you smoked the other one. I got lots of quotable lines from The Golden Child, a movie I saw on VHS, I don't know, twice.
It made that much of an impression on you?
I'm sure. It's a fantastic piece of work.
It's a great adventure.
That was kind of I think that was the success of Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes.
Weren't there a bunch of these kind of now maybe vaguely offensive Orientalist
yeah, right. With
action
the
movies?
long fingernails, they're searching for a girl with green eyes.
And maybe some of these movies have white people playing Asians. No way to know for sure.
So all these movies set in mystical Asia in the 80s all have James Hong playing the wise and potentially evil character, and they all have Victor Wong as the kind of like pie-eyed or wall-eyed.
Is he the cool drunk one?
Yeah, he's the one that kind of seems like he's the holy fool.
What about the guy from Gremlins, Key Luke? He's not in any of these, is he? The guy that sells him the gremlin?
Oh, no.
Because of the shamefully low representation of Asian Americans in Hollywood for the first 50 years of the movies, there's really, that's why you see the same people in all these movies.
Yeah, this is the end of that, the late 80s, right, when all of a sudden Hollywood was full of fascinating new Asian actors.
There were so few Asian Americans in show business for a long time. I just found out that Larry Hama, who used to write G.I. Joe and Wolverine comics when I was a kid, was actually in the original cast of Stephen Sondheim's Pacific Overtures.
Really?
And he wasn't even an actor. They were just like, there are no Asians on Broadway. Like, let's find some kids and put on a show.
Go around and knock on doors?
Pretty much.
Got any Asians?
Thankfully, that's being rectified today. But no, the assumption always was in the past that the Dalai Lama would be from Tibet.
Right.
So you got to follow whatever signs and visions are available to tell you where to go.
Well, look at us, or look at me at least. I thought, I assumed it was a Tibetan local thing.
What a blinkered small world view you have.
I do.
The Dalai Lama, as we'll see when we get to the next one, the Dalai Lama is on the record, the current 14th Dalai Lama is on the record as saying his successor could come from anywhere, but he may have political reasons for saying
confusing.
that. It's like Chef Gusteau always says, anyone can cook. And that doesn't mean everyone can cook. It just means a great cook can come from anywhere.
What if the new Dalai Lama comes from the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, that's kind of the end of the story. That's the turns out.
Oh, no, sorry.
That's the other turns out. But in 1935, the Chinese Communist Party was just a glint in Mao's eye. And so the search was much simpler. You just had to look for signs of where the new guy might be. So one thing you do is you embalm the old guy and you keep an eye on his corpse in his tomb.
Quoi?
In 1935, his head at one point started to wheel towards the northeast. I don't know.
Rigor mortis?
I can only assume, or a prankster, a fun janitor, maybe the sorcerer guy from Big Trouble in Little China. Victor Wong came in there and tilted the head. So northeast, that's a clue. A star-shaped fungus appeared overnight on the outside of the tomb on the east side.
Oh, I thought you were diagnosing me.
Yeah, a star-shaped fungus has appeared on my lower back. No, so now they've got two signs pointing east and northeast, so they've got a direction. There was an auspicious cloud bank. They went to the lake, the sacred lake where, what was our boy's name? Gendon Drupa received his reincarnation lineage, and they saw characters floating in the lake, symbols. There was a vision of the character for Ah, which they interpreted to mean, what can Ah mean in conjunction with Northeast Tibet? Of course, I know what you're thinking, John, the Amdo province.
Oh, well, I'm just wondering, like, what if they overshot and went to Tajikistan?
No, you're not going to, no.
Like Kyrgyzstan is up there
gonna,
too. Not that
true.
far.
All you have is a direction.
Yeah, right.
Like maybe it's going to go all the way northeast across the Bering Strait. Maybe you were the 14th Dalai Lama.
Well, but going around the Earth in that direction, you would end up where? You'd end up in Denmark.
No, northeast. Oh,
well,
I see.
See, because of the curvature of the Earth,
you don't think it would
extend out into space?
You think it would go over the pole?
Yeah, I think it would go over the pole and come around.
I need a globe.
Sorry, I normally have one.
You need to see. Yeah, where are your 38 globes?
They're not here in the bunker. They're in a storage container.
Please consult the omnibus about the Qibla for more of this kind of fun talk. So this wouldn't help because all you have is Amdo province and you have northeast, which is how they got to Amdo province. But luckily, a different monk had a dream where he saw a monastery with a distinctively curved, winding path around it to a little house with turquoise eaves. Now we're talking.
Tell me more.
Turquoise. I just realized this guy is literally reading the teal eaves. The teal eaves.
Teal eaves.
Got to read the teal eaves if you want to know the future.
I hate to take you off the topic.
No, you don't.
But the people that sold me my house painted my eaves gray.
Just the eaves.
Well, no, they painted the house. They painted the house red, barn red. Well, I've just given it away. Anybody that's in my neighborhood now is going to know where I live. But
find the barn red house with the gray eaves.
But they painted under the eaves. They painted them gray, and it's a mid-century house, so it has bigger eaves. And
people had bigger eaves back then.
Yeah, they did. There was bigger eaves is one of the ways you can tell people in old photographs. But I'm realizing that the gray eaves are like kind of a drag. But I'm trying to figure out what's an exciting color to paint under your eaves that doesn't seem a little bit like over much.
Tibetan Buddhism has the answer.
Turquoise eaves.
It would be auspicious because in this case, when the search parties headed up to the province of Amdo, they were undercover, by the way. This is like when you're trying to buy farms out from farmers. So they're not saying, hey, we're looking for the next Dalai Lama who can help. They're just like, we are poor, wandering, itinerant pilgrim monks. Please shelter us for the night.
This is cool.
And they wind up at a village in the Dokam district where they find a house that matches the appearance. And they've heard that there's a kid the right age. You know, it has to be someone who's been born since the death of the previous 13th Dalai Lama.
Right.
They didn't skip 13, by the way, as bad luck.
It's a kid that's old enough to be the Dalai Lama, but
It doesn't.
or young enough to be the Dalai Lama, but old enough that you can take it from its mother. Like you don't want to like take a 4-month-old.
They're not going to kidnap it. You know, it just occurred to me right now how similar this is to the Christmas story in Luke. You've got a bunch of astrologers wandering the countryside trying to deliver gifts to a chosen baby.
Right.
They know vaguely the direction to follow, but that's about it.
Yeah, they follow a wandering star or whatever.
Or in this case, the character Ah meaning Amdo. This must be a very deep archetype. Old men looking for a baby. It's deep in our souls.
Yeah, it's something from oldest India.
If old men are looking for a baby, that's how you know that's a good baby to follow.
You know, in our culture now, that's not as popular.
It's true.
Old men looking for a baby is kind of a bummer.
I mean, it definitely makes you side with the baby, but it gives you very bad feelings toward the old men.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should
correctly.
reevaluate that.
Oh, you do? The boy that they've heard about was actually born 2.5 years after the 13th Dalai Lama died, but apparently that is not a theological problem.
The Dalai Lama was taking care of business upstairs.
He spent some time in the Bardo, the limbo-like state between lives in Tibetan Buddhism.
Is that a groovy place? Like in what's the one where the kid, the Pixar film where the kid is like roaming around? There's a guy that doesn't want to die. Oh, it's the new one. It's Soul. And he's like, the jazz musician finds himself in a big cloud city full of little babies.
This place is very groovy. It's instead of babies, it's full of Buddhas.
Yeah.
you get visions of different kinds of Buddhas with, you know, all in great glory and color and representing different Buddhist virtues. And then it's like a choose your own adventure book by, you know, depending on which of the Buddhas you focus and meditate on, which of the colors of lights you look at, you'll come back in a different life. They say that you can even look at the last door that you look through. You will see into your next life. And in fact, you will see your parents going at it. And that's how you know that's a fertile landing place for your next arrival.
But I'm correct in saying that there are no lady Buddhas.
Well, that's another point. Up until now, there have been no female Dalai's Lama, and let's leave it there for the moment.
Okay.
When the undercover search party gets to this village, they find the little boy, and they don't know it's him. He's just dressed as like a servant kid. They don't even know he's from the household. But there are immediately miraculous manifestations. He seems to recognize one of the monks, whom he would have known in his past life as the 13th Dalai Lama.
Sure.
If you can get your mind around this. And he calls him he refers to him as a Lama, but he uses a Lhasa accent, like an accent from
town.
From town. So it would be like you go to the country to try to find the next whatever, and he's like, forget about it. I'm walking here. So he's got a regional accent that his predecessor would have had. But
not the people around where he's raised. Uh-huh.
As they observe him over the next few visits, at one point he asks for a set of rosary beads around somebody's neck. And actually those were beads that belonged to the previous Dalai Lama.
Okay.
And in fact, that's the test you do. You offer the child different objects to see if he can pick out the ones that he would have owned in his past life.
It feels like this is sort of a Weschler IQ test for children, right?
Right. Here's a picture of a moose looking at his mommy in the bathroom. What emotions does this make you think of? What does the baby moose think of right now? And in this case, they would show him, a ritual drum and something else, and he would know this is the drum that belonged to me when I was last here. This walking stick was mine.
But I wonder what the percentage of correct answers it is to get.
Right, what's the Mendoza line for being the Dalai Lama?
Because sometimes he's got to get it wrong, right, and just pick the more colorful.
Not if he's really the guy,
right?
It's not that different from. There's a Korean custom you do. I think when a child is like 100 days old, called dolchanchi, I think, where you show the child, and this is I think kind of a common archetype in Asian culture. You show the child a bunch of objects. The baby, there's a calligraphy brush, and if he picks up the brush, he's going to be a smart kid.
Oh,
And if he picks up the bill, he's going to be rich. If he picks up food, fat kid, I guess.
He's going to be chubby.
These are the three kinds of people there are: smart, rich, and fat. I guess.
So it's like a lot of Asian schools. They determine whether you're a carpenter or a lawyer before you're 7.
And that actually, the thing you pick up actually determines whether you get to go to the good cram school.
Right.
No, that's not true. But today there's maybe more modern options. Different colors of rice cake and
video games.
Right. Boy, you're gonna be a Twitch streamer. This is fantastic.
Hentai.
Oh no, he picked up the hentai. But the Dalai Lama passes all these tests or the child passes all these tests with flying colors, and that's how our Jiminy Cricket of a cherubic. That's the secret origin of the current Dalai Lama.
Right. Which one of these cups would have belonged to a carpenter?
But exactly. However, there's reason to believe this procedure may not be followed precisely when it's time to choose the 15th Dalai Lama. Our man, Tenzin Gyatso, who my friends think is a doofus, but I think is cool, is I think 83 this year as we record this. The funny thing is, if you look him up on Wikipedia, it would be offensive to list his birth date because, of course, he's a eternal manifestation of Avalokiteshvara.
So Tenzing is a very common name. Tenzing Norgay is the famous a mountaineer that.
Yeah, Tenzin is just like Kyle. If you go to, it's just like
there are that many Kyles.
It's just Zach or Jason. If you go to Tibet,
Tenzing Momo here in Seattle is a place that you can get fancy tea. Down in the Pike Place Market. Do you remember Tenzing? Oh, you've been to Shirley.
I've been there. It's still there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was born in, he's 85, actually. He was born, 35, of course.
He's a little bit younger than my mom.
So your mom could not be the next Dalai Lama.
Right. Although she was, I think, born after the death of the last Dalai Lama.
Oh, so maybe before. Do you think your mom was actually the Dalai Lama and she was just too far away? If you go northeast enough times, do you come around to Puget Sound?
I think that my mom is
or
probably
Ohio?
the reincarnation of a Tibetan Mastiff rather than of the Dalai Lama.
As I mentioned, since the 5th Dalai Lama unified Tibet in the mid 1600s, the Dalai Lama has also been a political leader of all the Tibetan people.
Right.
The 5th Dalai Lama was not just a revered monk, but also a scholar who left a lot of scripture. He welcomed a lot of, the first Europeans in Tibet were explorers, but they were also Jesuits who were deeply interested in the local religion. So the first, he's the first Tibetan that word got back to Europe about. So he's an important figure. And because he was able to use his theological clout to unify Tibet, since that time, the Dalai Lama has also been the political leader.
The Jesuits didn't get to Tibet until the 30s and 40s? This is kind of...
until I'm talking about the 5th Dalai Lama in the mid 17th century.
I was going to say that's pretty late for the Jesuits to come in and start messing around.
No. In the 30s and 40s, they had 50 basketball coaches there, probably.
Yeah, right.
Tibet was independent has historically been an independent state. But, when the Mongols moved in the 1300s, it lost a lot of its self-sovereignty,
right?
Self-sovereignty or sovereignty, to use another word. Right. What am I using? What's the word?
Self-determination?
Sure. Self-determination. And since that time, it's always been a little murky because China's always been the powerful neighbor next door, over time exercising either a lot or a little political power over its mountainous neighbor.
A long time before the communist
right. And that murky situation ended in, even Chiang Kai-shek, I think kind of his official government position was that Tibet was part of the Republic of China, even before the Mao won the Civil War. But after the communists took over China, they annexed Tibet fully in 1959. And ever since then, it's mostly been settled as a political question. Tibet has been forced to be part of the People's Republic of China. And in 1959, as a result, the Dalai Lama, then not just the beloved churchman, but also basically the prime minister of Tibet, the president of the country,
right,
fled across the border to India on foot and in a wagon cart with the help of the CIA, by the way.
Oh, sounds like Charles de Gaulle.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened, except instead of the English Channel, the Himalayas.
Wow.
And I guess if you're in the CIA, if you want to stop the spread of world communism, most of the times you're going to do kind of awful things like put strong men into Peruvian and Guatemalan and Chilean presidential mansions.
Right.
And
sometimes you do things like bring Led Zeppelin to the Czechoslovakia, right?
You put Billy Joel in Red Square as a counter intel op. I don't know what the word would be.
That's pretty good.
That's what it would be.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it would be.
So you're saying that some of the Dalai Lama's prominence in Western culture is a result of the CIA propping him up as an anti-communist,
a symbol of anti-communism. I mean, and that's not like a CIA propaganda operation.
As far as you know.
Well, I mean, it was mainstream Western belief in the 50s and 60s that anything that opposed communism, we were on the side of,
right? Even
if it was a Buddhist in a banana-looking hat. And from that time, he's been the leader of a Tibetan government in exile until 2011, by the way. He retired all his claim to the temporal leadership of Tibet in 2011 and said that, hey, it's the 21st century. Tibet should be a democracy. I'm just the Dalai Lama now, but...
There should be an election?
Yeah, I don't know how do you run an election for a government in exile? But in theory, Tibet, and should it ever have its homeland back, the within the borders of Tibet, would be a democracy. But he's not getting any younger. Yeah. Luckily, if we believe all these signs and visions from the last guy, the 14th incarnation of the Dalai Lama has had a dream that he will live to be 113. So if you've done the math, that's the year 2048, like the video game, like that phone app.
I'll be 60.
Yeah. 2048.
No.
You'll be dead.
I'll be 80.
We hope.
Yeah, inshallah.
I will be 26 plus 48. 66, is that right? Something like that.
What, you're 26 now?
64. I'll be 64.
Oh.
No, 26 years of the 20th century plus 48 years of the 64. I'm 64.
Well, you're not that much younger than me. It's not like you're 16
Sorry,
years
74. So when I'm 64.
Wait a minute, are you that much younger than me?
74, you're born in 68 or 69?
Oh, wow, you're 6 years younger than me? That's so weird. You look older.
No. I look perpetually young. I look like the kid in the Richie Rich comics.
It's true.
Whatever his name was.
You do. I look older.
So we have nothing to worry about, but his health has not been great lately. So I kind of worry about his dream, the dream we all have, the dream we all dream of living to be 113 years old.
How is his health bad? Just drinking? Is he living on?
He drinks nothing but kombucha,
fermented butter.
No, he just has yak butter 3 meals a day. I'm sure it's all kombucha and it's full of antioxidants, and he has not a single toxin.
Yeah.
in his bodhisattva bodhi, but. The problem is mostly a political one. Even though he has renounced his political power, China still sees that a lot of the opposition to their annexation of Tibet is centered around this universally, internationally popular, charismatic figure, except for my friend who thinks he's a blockhead. And crucially, China has the golden urn.
The golden urn exists still?
There's still a golden urn. And the official Chinese position is, of course, that they've done a great thing by freeing Tibet of this medieval theocratic slavery that these poor oppressed people labored under. They got rid of this reactionary force.
Is the urn like in a museum or something? Where's the urn?
If you would guard the urn. Surely the urn is in party headquarters in a file cabinet under you.
Yeah, they nailed it into a cask and they rolled it into a large warehouse.
Urn, comma, golden.
Men are
yeah, that's right. Top men. And at some point, the top men are going to reach into that urn and they're going to pull out a China-approved name, it seems. Because, first of all, no matter who the successor, even the successor the Dalai Lama would pick if he could, would be someone who doesn't have his clout, his charisma, his gravitas. He could be manipulated by other forces within the world of Tibetan Buddhism. And there's reason to believe that China would just put its own puppet Dalai Lama on I don't know if he has a throne.
Right.
On his stool. Because in 1995, the Dalai Lama named a new Panchen Lama, the second most prominent Lama in Tibetan Buddhism. named a 6-year-old, and China promptly disappeared the 6-year-old.
Whoa.
He has not been seen in public since, and his family.
Whoa.
And the official Chinese government's position is that, oh no, it's fine. He's doing great. He's in college now.
Whoa.
Please ask no other questions. we can't reveal his location or for the safety of him and his family, but rest assured that the party is keeping the Panchen Lama in the safest and best of conditions.
Xi Jinping, the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, looks very much like a businessman.
I thought you were going to say he looked like one of the villains of one of these 80s movies.
No, he just looks like a business person.
Yeah, Deng Xiaoping was the last guy from the revolution.
Yeah.
They're all dead. The Long March is dead.
He's just got a regular haircut and is wearing a regular suit, and I don't trust that he's going to be inspired reaching into that golden urn. He seems like he's just going to pick a business person.
Well, that's the great irony. That's the great irony of this, is that the Chinese Communist Party China's officially an atheist state.
Oh, sure.
But they are granting the existence of reincarnation and the theological correctness and legitimacy of Tibetan Buddhism by saying, nope, it's good. We got the urn. We'll take care of this. Your beloved atheist government will pick your new spiritual leader.
Uh-huh.
Whereas, ironically, the Dalai Lama has raised some eyebrows in the West lately by telling journalists that he's always been super Marxist.
What? Really?
Yeah. When it comes to social, and obviously I don't believe in Leninist class struggle. The Buddhism's about peace. But it's clear when you compare, it just comes purely to social economic theory, that Marx had the right idea, because at least his conception of economy had some morality to it.
Right.
Whereas, to the Dalai Lama, he'll say, well, capitalism is just all about gain and profitability. There's no room for Buddhist ideals of compassion or equality. So I'm forced to be a kind of an originalist Marxist here. So you've got a Chinese government professing belief in Buddha and reincarnation and the various manifestations of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion.
And then the Dalai Lama
is
talking about backyard
he's talking about controlling the means of production. So when he gives interviews, it's not really clear what's going to happen. He has said, he's given some interviews where he said he's open to ending the title. He'll be the last one to hold the belt, basically.
Oh.
It'll be discontinued.
Oh, well.
And specifically his quote is, there's no guarantee that some stupid Dalai Lama won't come next.
Oh, he is the one throwing shade on Dalai Lamas.
Well, yeah, and remember, this would be himself. This would be a reincarnated manifestation of his Buddha lineage.
Oh, sure. I could be stupider next time.
I could pick the wrong light in the bardo. I could just see two people going at it and being like, there, and then I'm a big dummy.
See, this is the thing. If you're in the bardo and you're looking down looking for sexy people having sex, you're going to pick sexy people, right?
And they're not going to have smart kids.
No, sexy people by definition don't have smart kids.
They're in high school and they're not using protection.
Yeah.
So he's granted the possibility that maybe he will be the final Dalai Lama. In other interviews, he said that he's open to picking a woman.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
He's open to a non-Tibetan. I mean, that kind of sounds free thinking and international, but what it really means is I don't have to pick someone under Chinese government auspices in Tibet. I can pick a follower from here in India.
But wait, is he picking it or is his henchmen picking it?
Well, that's the question. So I was reading an interview with one of the foremost authorities on Tibetan Buddhism, Robert Thurman, in the New York Times. Robert Thurman is also the father of Uma Thurman.
No.
Uma's dad is maybe the leading American scholar on Buddhism today.
Whoa.
And he says that, yeah, it's totally possible that the Dalai Lama could, it would be tricky for him to pick someone, because how can you have two of the same bodhisattva in the same place at the same time?
You can't.
But he could pick a regent while he was still alive, which doesn't usually happen, and say, hey, good news, this guy is going to be my guy, or maybe he is the reincarnation of my regent when I was a kid, because the regent continues to run the Dalai Lama show until the baby is of age,
We're back to the Dalai Lama show.
You can't have some 2-year-old just grabbing stuff, because he's going to grab
sure.
He's going to grab a Slim Jim.
Sure, the regent ends up holding on to Minas Tirith until the king returns.
He's a Denethor type.
Uh-huh.
So Thurman proposes this kind of bizarre scenario where he picks a guy and says, I've recognized this to be my beloved regent. Now he's going to be the regent for the new guy. And then the Dalai Lama can have his old age in peace, hanging out with Desmond Tutu and Bill Clinton or whatever the Dalai Lama does.
Right.
And then when he passes away, no problem, because there's already somebody running the show who can then ensure continuity and say, oh, good news, I've found a baby, and that's my guy. So they just kind of do the Putin Medvedev switcheroo with regent and Dalai Lama.
Right.
And then they switch off. So it's not clear what's going to happen, but the future of Tibet as an entity and even an idea kind of hangs in the balance.
Does Uma Thurman's dad have any money on who the regent's going to be? There can't be that many guys hanging around the Dalai. Is it going to be Bill Clinton? Is it going to be Mike D?
It's not going to be one of the guys he buddies around with on airplanes.
Okay.
It's going to be a monastic advisor. It's going to be a disciple. He's still, the Dalai Lama still says, I spend 20% of my day doing being the Dalai Lama. 80% of my day is spent in meditation. And this is where I think my friend's theory would be that he is just watching reality TV. He's just watching Great British Bake Off all day.
Does meditation, have you done meditation? Have you meditated, I guess is one way of saying that?
I have tried.
I wonder if spending 80% of your day meditating, whether that makes you smarter or dumber.
It might be that they meet in the middle. It's like like people often say about the far left and the far right, you come around to the same crackpot ideas.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would be true of if meditating, you get so smart that you are indistinguishable from a super dumb guy.
Well, that's the crazy part, right? I've known a lot of people that meditate all the time, and they typically are not the ones I turn to for advice, because their advice is always, you should meditate. At what point is it just like a kind of like a form of forced dumbness?
I find that my mind is just too active to meditate. And maybe that means I need to meditate more than most people, but it means that I just find myself like unable to get into that zone of peace and contemplation. So
it just means that you should have a podcast where you read Wikipedia. And that concludes the next Dalai Lama. Entry 836.MT0208. Certificate number 32762 in the omnibus. Futurelings, in the unlikely event that, I'm the regent that picks the next Dalai Lama.
Who are you going to pick?
A kid that's not born yet.
I would pick a Major League Baseball player.
They're
idiots.
Yeah.
But they have to have that kind of, that purity, that empty purity of mind that comes with being able to hit a sticky curveball, or, whatever a pitcher has to have on the mound with all eyes on him.
They're so macho. I think what I would do as the baseball players, they swagger around.
They're just country boys. It's not the same as macho.
I would find a really sexy couple, pick their sexy baby, and then I'd be in charge because it'd be a dumb baby. And then as the regent, I'd be sitting eating cherry tomatoes in a fur coat until, and then trying to burn my son in oil.
People will love the sexy baby, and the sexy baby will never care that you're the power behind the throne.
Exactly. Sexy baby just rolls around, hanging out with white rappers. And I'm the one that's pulling the strings.
It sounds pretty good. But don't you want to hang out with Harry and Meghan or whatever your sexy baby is doing? You don't care?
0%.
Okay.
Do I want to hang out with celebs?
It kept you off Epstein's plane.
It sure did.
Whew.
Yeah.
Dodged a bullet.
Hanging with celebs is never as good as it seems. But in the unlikely event that social media still exists, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are archived at Omnibus Project. Our respective handles were our names, Ken Jennings and John Roderick, although you can find me now mostly on Patreon/John Roderick. Patreon.com/John Roderick.
Get that paper.
I would like you to email us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. You can email us our congratulations and also all of your fact checking.
Send us pictures of your good looking babies for application purposes.
You can support this show by sending us the golden urn or its contents, as long as its contents are gold, to patreon.com/omnibus project. Actually, if you're going to send us the urn, you would send it to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington, 98155. If you pawn the urn...
And send us the profits.
You send us some portion of the profits to patreon.com/omnibus project to keep the show going. And you can hang out with other futurelings and celebrate us and criticize us, talk about your own lives.
Mostly criticize us.
At any place futurelings are found. Facebook, Reddit, Discord, the other Discord.
Your office Slack, there's probably somebody talking about us.
That's right. And so that's what you should do.
Listeners, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that we get to the 15th Dalai Lama, honestly, and that the catastrophe we fear may never come. But if the worst comes soon, this recording, like all our recordings, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.